Good afternoon, and welcome to the Executives Unplugged Luncheon presented by Wellstar Douglas Hospital. I am Trent North, Chair of the Board of Directors for the Douglas County Chamber, and I would like to personally thank you for joining us today. I would like to invite Keondae Dunham with the Brooklands Group to come forward and lead us in our invocation and pledge.
Good morning, everyone. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come now to first give you thanks for all things that you have done. We thank you for the blessed privilege that is ours to gather here in this space to network, learn, and lunch. Lord, we recognize that with certain privileges come great responsibility. It is my prayer that you give us wisdom and guidance that as we gather to make decisions that serve the common good of our community. Thank you for the blessings of this community. Help us to encourage one another and respond in a sense of unity. Thank you for making this a place where businesses and the people have the opportunity to prosper. Lord, we ask a special blessing over what we will do and learn here today. Thank you for the things our eyes will see, our ears will hear, and our hearts will feel. Furthermore, we bless the food that we have partaken of so that it may be nourishment of our bodies, that we may submit our bodies to your service. Blessed hands that prepared it. We ask all these things in your Son's holy and matchless name, amen. Let us stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you once again. At this time, I would like to invite our presenting sponsor, Paul Denren, CFO of Wellstar Douglas Hospital, if you would come up at this time.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Dameron, CFO of Wellstar Douglas, and recent graduate of Leadership Douglas class of 2024, greatest class ever. Thank you. Carly's going to hate me for doing this, but I just want to give props to Carly and to the Chamber for running such an outstanding program. If you have not participated in Leadership Douglas, I highly recommend that you do it or at least apply to the program. You will get so much out of it. You will learn so much more about the county. You will develop relationships that you would not develop outside of Leadership Douglas. And so they do a great job. Carly does a great job of organizing and running that. So I want to thank Carly and also the Chamber for Leadership Douglas. Thank you. I also want to thank the Chamber for allowing us to sponsor the Executive Unplugged Luncheon Series and for all that the Chamber does to help connect the community and also to the region. At Wellstar, our mission is to enhance the health and well-being of every person we serve. We are driven by a passion for providing exceptional, compassionate care for everybody that walks through our doors, regardless of age, race, background, circumstances. And not only do we have that commitment to our facility and to our campus and people that come in to our campus, we also have a commitment to our community and people that we serve outside of our hospital. I look forward to hearing from Anna Roach. She is the CEO of Atlanta Regional Commission, and one of their priorities is to increase access to health care for families of Metro Atlanta. And that's a commitment that we have as Wellstar to increase access to health care, especially primary care. An example of this, last month Wellstar Douglas opened the Outpatient Primary Care Graduate Medical Education Treatment Clinic. We call it GME Clinic for short. And this is a full-fledged primary care clinic with 7 attending physicians that work with the 18 primary care residents to treat patients in our community. The clinic is on our campus, and it's going to be a great referral point for patients that have no access or limited access to healthcare, especially primary care. And this is regardless of insurance, financial status, ability to pay. And so we're going to be able to serve a lot of people that have been underserved in our community. And that just opened last month. So that's something we're really excited about. Also, we're really excited about last month, Wellstar Douglas received the Health Grades Excellent and Patient Safety Award for top performance in key quality metrics. And this award goes to hospitals that are in the top decile performing top quality care. And that's something that we received last month. So this month in May, we celebrate our healthcare workers. We have Healthcare Week and also National Nurses Week. And so last week was National Nurses Week, and we did a lot of functions for our team members. We gave out so much swag. I'm almost afraid to see the price tag of all the swag that we gave out, being the CFO of the hospital. But they're is well deserved. They're underappreciated. It's a higher calling to be a healthcare worker, to be a nurse in our community, and so we appreciate them through Nurses and Healthcare Week, and also appreciate all the providers that service Douglas County. So in closing, we are grateful for the many valued partnerships represented in this room today. Through collaboration and shared vision, we can tackle challenges, promote growth, and ensure the well-being of all. Thank you to the Chamber and fellow leaders for your dedication to our region's prosperity. Working together, we have the power to transform lives and build a brighter, healthier future. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. I would also like to thank our civil sponsors for today's event, Microsoft. We appreciate your support. Next, I would like to take a moment to recognize someone or some of our special guests attending today. Board members, if you are a board member, please stand and introduce yourself. Starting with my right. Thank you. Diplomats and business outreach team, if you would stand. Thank you. If we have any elected officials joining us today, would you please stand and introduce yourself? Ladies first. Thank you. We're also proud of our 2024 Cornerstone investors that are here with us today. I'm sure many of you have noticed them on the slides prior to the luncheon, but I do want to say thank you and recognize the group sitting here in the front of the room. If you are a Chairman Circle Visionary Partner, please stand and introduce yourself. Trent North, Douglas County School System. I'm also thrilled to introduce one of our newest members for the 2024 Chairman Circle's investors. At this time, if my good friend Alicia Doherty would come to the stage. On behalf of the Douglas, no, I was about to say school system.
Well, you can say that too. We'll take it.
On behalf of the Douglas County Board of Education, welcome To the chairman's circle. And thank you for participating.
Thank you. The Red Cross, we are honored to be a part of the Chairman's Circle. It just took us a little bit longer to get here, but thank you to Sarah and the Chamber for always supporting the American Red Cross. Our mission is to prevent and alleviate human suffering in the face of emergencies. And we do that through the generosity of our financial donors and through the power of our volunteers. 90% of our workforce are volunteers. So when there's a disaster in this state, this county, this country, it's typically volunteers that are getting up out of their beds to go help serve our community. Most frequent disaster that we respond to are home fires. And last week alone in the state of Georgia, there were 43 disasters across the state of Georgia. And so that we rely on those volunteers to go out and help assist our communities, those families that we're serving. There's a lot of other great work that we do. We collect blood every 2 seconds. Someone in the United States needs a blood transfusion. We provide support to the armed forces, so we support our militaries and their families. We have over 100 military installations across the world. We have a Red Cross presence there to support our military while they're deployed overseas. We do training services, so we want to make sure the community is prepared in the event of an emergency. So whether that's CPR and first aid training, the use of an AED, we want people ready to respond. And then what have I left out? We also do work internationally to support humanitarian efforts worldwide. So we're proud to have a presence in Douglas County. We're proud to serve the state of Georgia. And if you're interested in joining our mission, you can find us at redcross.org or stop to see me at any point after this event. And thank you if you've touched our mission in any way through your support. Thank you so much.
Thank you. At this time, it is my honor to introduce our keynote speaker for today's event. Anna Roach is the Executive Director and CEO of Atlanta Regional Commission. In this role, she directs the agency's work and policy areas that span the various disciplines under the ARC's purview. She also leads the Commission's engagement with elected and appointed officials at the federal, state, and local. Bless you. Anna has an extensive background in public and the private sectors, and I am excited to hear from her today. It is my pleasure to welcome Anna Roach, Executive Director and CEO of the Atlanta Regional Commission, to the stage.
Oh, thank you so much for that warm introduction. A good afternoon, Douglas County. It is very good to see you today. It is also good to see so many familiar faces today, including members of my board who are here. Mayor Robinson, Sarah Ray, some former board members are here as well. Thank you to the Chamber for its leadership. Thank you to the Chamber also for the invitation to be here today and to have an opportunity to address you. I'm delighted to be here. Douglas is actually a vibrant, thriving community that the Atlanta Regional Commission has its eye on. There's so many great things happening here in Douglas, and the sky is the limit. You've got the right leadership in place, and there are great things happening here in Douglas. It's also a stone's throw from where I live in the city of South Fulton, just across the Chattahoochee River, so it's always great to be here. This is where I shop, this is where I worship sometimes, and so it's always great to be in Douglas. Today, I'm excited to tell you about some of the major investments that the Atlanta Regional Commission is making right here in Douglas County. I'll tell you also a little bit about the Atlanta Regional Commission and the incredible opportunities that are on the horizon for this county as well as the other counties that are a part of this region. And all of the things that I'll talk to you about today are going to be toward accomplishing the Atlanta Regional's vision for this region, which is to become, as you see on this screen here, one great region. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this slide, but I think it is important for you to understand who we are and what we do at the Atlanta Regional Commission. We are one of 12 regional commissions in the state of Georgia that were established by the Georgia Planning Act. In fact, when we were first established, all 12 of us, our principal role and responsibility was to support local governments in comprehensive planning. All of the cities all across the region and all across the state have to submit comp plans to DCA, and our principal role at that time was to support the development of those plans. Well, as you can imagine, ARC's portfolio has grown significantly since then. We have been federally designated as the Metropolitan Planning Organization for the region. We're also the Area Agency on Aging. We are the federally designated recipient of the Urban Area Security Group funding, and so we have a ton of breadth, and the organization has evolved a great deal since its inception 75 years ago. Our board is comprised of members of our jurisdictions that are a part of the Atlanta Regional Commission. There are 41 members of our board. The 11 counties that are members of our board, all the chairmen serve on our board, as well as mayors from each of those counties. And then we also have citizen members who are elected to serve on our board as well. That's how the 41-member board is comprised. But more than how we are comprised and who we are is our why. Our mission at the Atlanta Regional Commission is to foster thriving communities for all in Metro Atlanta. That's at the core of every single thing that we do. And I talked a little bit about our vision. It is intentionally simple and intentionally impactful. We wanted to make sure we identified a vision for this region that everybody could call their own. One great region. And for every stakeholder within this room, we need your help, we need your support, ultimately to get to this vision of one great region. We've also identified 5 principal goals that we'd like to achieve as an organization. We work with our community partners to create healthy, safe, livable communities. We make strategic investments in people, infrastructure, and mobility, always guided by the data that we maintain and we analyze at the Atlanta Regional Commission. We deliver regional services with operational excellence and efficiency. It is never lost on us that the $3 billion that we invest at ARC on an annual basis all across the region, those are tax dollars. Those are your dollars, and we are stewards of public funds. And so it is my principal goal as the leader of this organization to ensure that we are operating at all time with excellence and efficiency. The core of what we do as well is to bring diverse stakeholders together, to engage in conversation, build consensus, and think regionally about the problems that we have as a society and make sure that the solutions that we come up with are also regional in scale. And the last thing that we do, which will resonate with each of you here, is our focus on fostering a competitive economy that is inclusive as well as resilient. So that's a little bit about what we wake up in every day thinking about, our mission, our vision, as well as our goals. As Metro Atlanta's long-range planning organization, perhaps the most important thing that we do is to envision where we will be as a region in like 50-year time spans, if you can imagine that. Our latest long-range forecast looks out to year 2050, and I want to share with you some of the highlights from that study. We call it the Series 17 study only because it's the 17th time we've done it, so tried not to get creative with the name. So what we're forecasting in that study through 2050 is that our 21 county region will have a population of 7.9 million. Our current population is 6.1, and that essentially means that we're gonna add 1.8 million people by 2050. How many of you have friends or have heard people say on Twitter that we're full in Atlanta? We are not full. And they are coming whether we want to or not. And so what we have to do as a community is make sure that we prepare for that. And so you can help the Atlanta Regional Commission out by encouraging people to stop saying we're full, because we're not. A little bit about Douglas. That increase is about a 30% increase, the add of 1.8 million people. A little bit about Douglas in particular. Douglas will add 35,000 people by 2050. Y'all ain't full either. And so your population will grow to a total of about 180,000 people by then. That is right on pace with the regional growth rate, which is, the Douglas growth rate is at about 25%. So the population growth here in Douglas, as well as all across our region, is being driven by our economy. Our forecast shows that Atlanta will have 4.6 million jobs in 2050, which is a 22% increase, and the Douglas workforce is going to grow at a slightly faster pace, adding more than 14,000 jobs right here in Douglas County by 2050. The employment growth is going to be broad, not in any one sector or the other, but we do see that the largest number of jobs are going to be added in the business services sector, and the fastest growing sectors are going to be arts and entertainment, as well as manufacturing. So our region isn't just growing fast, our population is changing rapidly as well. So what we look like today is not necessarily what we're gonna look like in 2050 when all this growth is done. I think I went too far there. There we go. So virtually all the net growth that we're going to see in the region in Douglas will be from racial and ethnic minority groups. For example, Hispanic and Latino residents are forecasted to account for 21% of the region's population by 2050. Today, it's 12%. The region's population of older adults, we were just talking about that earlier this morning, is also going to grow because we are healthier and we are living longer. In 2050, nearly 12% of our population is going to be over the age of 75, and that compares to a share of 5% today. So we are going to be much more diverse, and we are going to be much older as we approach 2050. The new population forecast is about 700,000 below what we did from the 2020 census, for the 2020 census. And the reason that is because we're predicting less migration into Metro Atlanta, and y'all are having fewer babies. So the fertility rates that we were observing at the last census, that has slowed compared to the rates that we're seeing at the 2020 census. The fastest growing counties in the region will be Forsyth, Barrow, Paulding, and Cherokee. The rest of the region will also grow at a pretty aggressive rate, but those are the counties that will experience the fastest growth rate. Now moving on to the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. Now the reason why we keep and we analyze all this data about population, how it's growing, where it's growing, and what types of people we will see is because all of that data informs our long-range Metropolitan Transportation Plan. It's a plan that we're required to maintain as the planning organization. We provide it to the federal government, and it helps inform investments all across our region. This Metropolitan Transportation Plan has within it approximately $168 billion worth of transportation investments between now and 2050. That is an incredible amount of money. Those transportation investments will be invested right here in Metro Atlanta, all across the region, including here in Douglas County. Nearly 2/3 of those funds, of the $168 billion, will be maintaining what we already have. So we have some window for new capital projects, but much of it is maintaining a state of good repair for the transportation infrastructure that we have in place right now. Our metropolitan transportation investments are carefully considered and strategic in nature. I've already told you how closely we look at the population data to inform how we plan for those transportation investments. But the primary objective that we are trying to achieve in those investments is to make sure that we are addressing traffic, which is what everybody complains about in Metro Atlanta. Sometimes I feel like we're doing a good job, sometimes I feel like we are not. But the other thing is to make sure, again, that we provide opportunities for vibrant communities. I want to give you a couple of examples of exactly what I am talking about. The MTP, as we affectionately call it at ARC, includes almost $900 million and 27 projects in Douglas County between now and 2050. A couple of those projects you may be familiar with. One is the continuation of work to create a wider truck-friendly lane all along Thornton Road. I know this road very well because it actually leads to Camp Creek Parkway, and I live off Camp Creek Parkway. Right at the loop at 20. So if y'all can envision that intersection, Thornton Road and 20, there's an incredible amount of investments anticipated for there to make sure that we can accommodate the freight traffic that frequents that corridor. It's also going to include signal timing, traffic cameras, overhead signals, and that will give us real-time updates about the conditions on I-20 so that these truck drivers can make the appropriate decisions about routes and the like. There's also a significant investment anticipated for the widening of Chapel Hill Road from Hospital Drive, are y'all listening, Wellstar? All the way down to Arbor Place Mall, making for better connection from that corridor all the way to I-20. And then, of course, there are federal funds anticipated for Connect Douglas, which provides critical transportation options for many, many residents. We're really proud. I don't know if you remember, Mayor, when we first thought about transit in Douglas County and the city of Douglasville, and it just was a kernel in the mind then, and now look at it. It's a fully functioning transit system that we are going to make sure that it grows for the benefit of the residents here in Douglas County. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about our regional priorities. The one that I wouldn't say keeps me up at night, but the one that provides the greatest opportunity for the region. Many of you have probably heard about the bipartisan infrastructure law. It's quite frankly a generational investment in infrastructure that I certainly haven't seen in my lifetime happen in the United States. That's really at its peak right now. It's a 5-year funding program for infrastructure that doubles funding, formula funding, to all regions all across the United States. And then on top of that, provides a huge tranche of money in discretionary funds that we compete with other regions to get. The really cool thing about the bipartisan infrastructure law, though I think the most interesting piece of it is that it completely redefines what we think about when we think about infrastructure. Most DOTs, I don't know if your DOT head is in here, but they think about roads and bridges, surface transportation. But what this law says is, well, you know, things like broadband are critical infrastructure for the United States. Things like stormwater infrastructure and how resilient it is also important for us to be thinking about when we think about infrastructure. So the good news is that we can expend these funds in new and creative ways to make sure that we are taking a holistic approach to infrastructure and not just thinking about roads and bridges, which, by the way, are very important as well. I do want to talk about the legislation's creativity in creating dozens of opportunities for us to invest as well in climate resiliency and electrification. There are a few examples in Douglas County that will affect, well, there are a few examples of funding that we have that will affect Douglas County as well as the rest of the region. We are competing for as many dollars as we can attract to Metro Atlanta because I don't want to see it all go to Los Angeles and San Francisco and New York City. And we've received a good bit, $150 million to the region since we started applying for these funds. Most recently, ARC received a $6.1 million grant from the Federal Department of Transportation to install 400 electric vehicle charging ports all across the Atlanta region. I want to pause here for a second. Driving an electric car is probably the single most significant individual thing that you can do to impact the climate. If we want people to make that shift from internal combustion engines to electric vehicles, we're going to have to make them comfortable to do so by putting the charging infrastructure in place that's going to be necessary to accommodate that. So we're very excited about this grant in particular. It's a space in which we are going to have to work very, very closely with the private sector, who's going to be responsible for doing most of the infrastructure. But the more that governments can enable that by kicking off that effort, I think the better off the private sector, our partners in this room, will be in moving that forward. We've also received a $50 million grant from the federal government to connect a multi-use trail that goes through several south of I-20 communities all the way to the Beltline. We're really excited about that, and there was tons of press about that. Anytime anybody says the word Beltline, it ends up in the news. So we were very excited about that. And I don't know if y'all heard about the Stitch project. I'm excited about that project as well. We were able to work with the folks at CAP to attract construction funding, $158 million of it to the Stitch. And why I'm excited about that project is not necessarily where it is right now, but what it could mean for the future development of all of the communities that surround downtown and all up and down along I-20, which is at the south end of that project. So the region is getting its share of these discretionary funding, and like I said, we've almost doubled the funding that we would typically get on a formula basis. There we go. To improve our chances for securing the federal funding, we have come up with this regional theme called Reconnecting the Region. I'm not sure if y'all know the history of this, but when the original interstates were put in place, 20, 285, those interstates divided a lot of communities that we're looking to reconnect. Not only that, if you look at where the job concentrations are, many of y'all are driving outside of Douglas County, outside of South Fulton, outside of Gwinnett County and the like to get to these job centers that are either in Atlanta or in North Fulton. And so we wanted to focus our theme for attracting those federal funds around this notion of reconnecting the region and making sure that folks who live in the exurbs and suburbs of our region have quality access to transportation to get to those job centers. And that has proven to be a really successful strategy towards attracting those funds. I talked a little bit about this morning as well to the chairman's circle. What's going to become important, probably more important than attracting the funds, is making sure that we are able to execute those funds. It makes no sense for us to have hundreds of millions of transportation dollars and no one to build a transportation thing. And so what we've been working with our partners, the Technical College System of Georgia, as well as Goodwill, to do is to make sure that we are talking with our K-12 educators, we're talking with our reskilling agencies and workforce development agencies to make sure that people understand how attractive the construction sector is in terms of jobs. We have got to build those skills for folks to be able to do this construction work so that we can actually implement the dollars that we have received. So we've attracted funds to do that. In fact, we were the first metropolitan planning organization in the nation to do what the bipartisan infrastructure law allows, which is to take those transportation dollars and flex them to workforce development. So we will take a portion, thank you, we took a portion of the funding that we got for roads and bridges and said, no sense in putting it all in the infrastructure, we've got to build the workforce to be able to do this. And that's been a successful use case for the rest of the nation as well. We also received a $2 million grant from the Department of Labor to work with Goodwill around this new skill set that we're going to need. Once we install these, the charging infrastructure for electric vehicles, somebody's gonna need to figure out how to maintain them so that they work when you plug your car into them, right? And so really that skill doesn't exist right now at scale. And so that grant is to work with Goodwill to start training folks to be able to do installation and maintenance of EV charging infrastructure. So we're really excited about that as well. Okay, I love talking about housing. The reason I love talking so much about housing is because I have a 20-year-old and a 19-year-old, and one is at Clark, Atlanta, and the other one is at Kennesaw State University, and I don't want them to move back in my house when they're done. And so I always like to highlight every time I can, with every audience that I can, that we have to be careful and laser focused in our region about making sure that we are putting our heads together to address housing affordability in Metro Atlanta. A strong housing market is always a hallmark of a good economy. Nobody here is going to deny that. But the fact is that our home buying rates as well as our rental rates have raised at a pace that almost doubles the pace of increasing wages, which is not sustainable. It is absolutely positively not sustainable. And we have to figure out how in this region we're going to increase the inventory of our housing so that we can drive down the cost. Of course, the interest rate, which we don't control in this room, is also a factor as well. We have got to figure out what combination of solutions we need to put in place in Metro Atlanta to be able to address this issue. We do have the Metro Atlanta Housing Strategy, which is a comprehensive program that was developed at the Atlanta Regional Commission to give every community in the region a snapshot of its housing state. How affordable is your community? What is the average cost of a home to buy? What is the average cost of rental? And what are some of the steps that you could put in place? The one thing we don't do at the Atlanta Regional Commission is tell people or tell communities how to grow and how to sustain. But it is our job to give you the tools to be able to do that, because what affordability means for those of you who live in Douglas County looks very different from what affordability means for somebody who lives in the city of Atlanta. So it's important that Douglas designs its own solutions for affordability for Douglas County, and we have the tools to be able to help you all to do that. I'm so glad the Red Cross went before me. This makes having this conversation just a little bit easier. We've all been faced with extreme weather events over the last several years, and we have to do something to make sure our communities are resilient to those extreme weather events that are coming along with climate change. The one thing that we've done pretty successfully at ARC over the last 2 years is attract a ton of funding to the agency to address climate change. We've established a climate and resiliency department within the Atlanta Regional Commission, and we're going to be working with communities like Douglas County and working with partners like the Red Cross to figure out how we put things in place to make sure that our communities are resilient to climate change. Specifically, ARC received a $1.5 million grant from Federal Highway last fall, and that's going to be used to work with communities to develop a resilience improvement plan. And that's basically to take a look at all of the existing transportation infrastructure in our Metro Atlanta communities, assess how resilient they are to extreme weather events, and then identify a list of things that need to be addressed. From that list of things, you can now then access federal funding to be able to repair or adjust or expand that infrastructure. It's actually really important funding for the region, and I'm excited to put things in place to be able to attract the funding to address those things. So those are some of the things that we are working on and prioritizing. Climate action is important to us at the Atlanta Regional Commission. Housing, like we talked about before, making sure that we have the right workforce development resources in place to execute on those dollars that we're attracting to the region. Those are the things that we are working on, and understand that from our long-range planning standpoint, there is ample transportation resources that are in our Metropolitan Transportation Plan for this community. I do want to invite you all to make sure that if the Atlanta Regional Commission has a resource that can help you in business, or if you can think of a way that you can support our mission and our vision to achieve one great region, that you reach out and communicate with us. That's what we're here for. We are a resource for you as the private sector and other partners in this room, and we want to make sure that we keep the conversation going so that we can prepare for our 1.8 million friends who are going to move here by 2050. Thank you so much. I think we are going to do questions, Sarah. Thank you. So I don't know if anybody has any questions. I'm glad to facilitate them. Yes, sir. I think that's a fantastic question. Thank you for that question. I'd now like to turn the mic over to Georgia Power, who's now. No, Georgia Power is actually a very. Yeah. Yes, yes. Million. Oh my gosh, I heard the story about the construction of Vogel and all of the learnings from bringing the first couple of towers on. It is a fair and good question. It is a question that is top of mind for the Atlanta Regional Commission as well for Georgia Power. There is not an EV conversation that is had at ARC without having Georgia Power in the room. What we have been told by our partners is that at the current pace of adoption, there is ample energy to support the adoption rate for electric vehicles. The things that we're keeping an eye on are data centers that are big energy users as well. And what we have to try to do and continue observing and having the conversation about is how other technology and other industry will also draw on that need for power, and how we will have to scale our capacity to be able to accommodate all of that. But we are having that conversation. It's a question that's top of mind for us all the time. Any other questions? Madam Mayor?
Thank you so much. It isn't a question. I just wanted to make a comment that under the leadership of Anna, being the executive director and CEO for ARC, she's done a phenomenal job. She is quiet.
Thank you.
She comes in the room and she settles everyone down, and she does an excellent, doesn't she? Does an excellent job. I just wanted to give you your flowers. I don't have any for Mother's Day.
Thank you so much.
But for being the mother of ARC and
Oh,
really
man.
helping us to move the needle forward in being equitable amongst all the regions, all the cities and counties in the region, and not just focusing on the ones that you hear and see and that are more prominent in the region. So thank you so much for doing the wonderful job that you do.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much, Mayor Robertson. I will say this. I've had a pretty long career, and from the braids, you probably can't see the gray hairs. I'm old. I've had a long career that I've been an attorney, a practicing attorney. I've been an administrative law judge. I've worked in the executive offices at local governments, state governments, and the like. And this is the best job I have ever had. I take this job to heart because it's such a privilege to not have to wake up every day to put out fires, right? But instead, this job, it entails looking 30 years into the future about how our community needs to look. And I do consider that a privilege to be able to do that. Not only do I get the opportunity to plan for how this region will grow and thrive, I also get a whole bunch of money to help make sure that it happens that way as well. And so it is an incredibly humbling privilege to be in this role, and I take it seriously, I take it to heart, and that's what gives me the passion I need to do the right thing and wake up every day and do what you described, Mayor. Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Anna, for the wonderful insights and inspiration. As a thank you for speaking, a contribution will be made in your name as to the Chamber Board of Scholarship, which funds a scholarship for a graduating high school senior each year, specifically in Douglas County. So congratulations. Just a couple of announcements before we leave. Please join us on May 30th at the Cultural Arts Center for a night-themed Understanding Heritage, Creating Balance Through Unseen Biases. Throughout the evening, we will collaborate on a design to represent our collective heritage. Attendees will dive into the discussion on how flags can reflect and unite our diverse community. To register, please visit our website. Also, join us on June 13th for our next Reshaping the Lens of Equity breakfast that brings together local experts to explore crucial aspects of housing and home ownership. Thanks to a grant received by the Douglas County Chamber, there is no charge to attend for investors, and registration for the information is available on the website as well. Once again, we know each of you have a lot to do, so thank you for choosing to partner with the Chamber tonight. Thank you to our Wellstar Douglas Hospital for being the signature sponsor, and to Microsoft. Have a wonderful evening.